Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 5th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 38. My name is Chris, and I don't even believe it's Tuesday. I refuse to believe it, so to convince me, I've assembled an expert panel of internet citizens in our Mumble Room. Time-appropriate greeting, Mumble citizens.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. It's Tuesday.
Yes, I know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I wrote Monday down in my notes. That's how tired I am today. So let's wake up by freaking the crap out of ourselves. You know, Black Hat's going on right now. I think it's going to be, I think Black Hat seriously represents Christmas for TechSnap. I've been looking at some of the stories that have been coming out before Black Hat and coming out leading up to Black Hat. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a TechSnap story. That's a TechSnap story. So we're going to probably have a couple of, last week's episode was huge, and I think this week's episode is going to be big. This came out this morning. I think people are trying to maybe generate a little buzz for their Black Hat talk. So that's why some of these stories are coming out, but it still makes you think. And it's a thread we picked up on maybe right before my OSCON trip. But now we have an actual list of the least secure cars according to new research that has been done. So hopefully your car isn't on this list, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. This is done by two security experts who will be presenting a Black Hat. So we're going to get more details when the presentation's out, supposedly. Now, the cars labeled the most insecure are the 2014 Jeep Cherokee. Oh, sorry, no, I think. The 2015 Cadillac Escalade. And the 2014 Toyota Prius. Those are among some of the vehicles most vulnerable because of security holes that can be accessed through the car's Bluetooth, telematics, or onboard phone applications. The most secure cars include the Dodge Viper, the Audi A8, and the Honda Accord. This is according to research Charlie Miller and Chris Valsek. Now, I will say I want to tap the brakes here for a moment if we could. The two security experts didn't physically test these vehicles in question. Instead, what they did was they used information about the automated capabilities of the car's internal network and some specs that have been published. So here's a quote from them. They say, "We can't say for sure we can hack the Jeep and not the Audi," says Valsek, "but the radio can talk to the brakes. We know that. And because both are on the same network, according to the Connected Car Cybersecurity Report from ABI Research, there have been quite a few proof of concepts based on that, demonstrating interception of wireless signals of tire pressure and monitoring systems, impairing anti-theft systems, and taking control of self-driving and remote control features through a vehicle's internal bus known as CAN, which is now in the U.S. It's a mandated standard that everything needs to be on the CAN bus." Okay. So we have cars that are getting a lot more computer systems as a response to consumer demand. And I'm going to be honest with you guys in the Mumble Room. I have a bit of a dog in this hunt. The more network capable, the more computer technical capabilities that are in these cars, the more likely that the people driving these cars can listen to Jupiter Broadcasting content in their car instead of the crappy radio content. So computers in the cars have some benefits also for nav. I love nav. But here's, I think, what we have is a bit of a regulatory issue that's essentially enforcing this CAN bus. And this CAN bus is sort of based on some old, like old bus technology where everything is on one flat network. So I've been told that some cars have firewalls, but I think it depends. Essentially, if you get on this CAN bus, I guess what the fundamental flaw is that everything on the CAN bus network is trusted. So once you are on CAN bus, you are a trusted device. There is no device authentication. Now, the flip side of this is they're about to make changes to this where each device will be signed and have to be trusted. But even to get on that list and to get tested and then signed, it's like a $6,000 entry. So it's going to weigh up the cost of peripherals that can go on this bus. So we have a system right now where there's cars out on the market. They're using, based on regulations here in the U.S., this CAN bus system. And the consumers are demanding the features, but the security isn't there.
I'm a little confused on the practical application of this because Bluetooth doesn't have a very big range. So, when your car is off, is Bluetooth still on? Like, I don't see how
there are a couple of
cars.
There are a couple of cars where the Bluetooth is still on, but think of it more like there's more than just Bluetooth now. There's Wi-Fi on these cars. This is what they're saying is the idea would be is someone like Michael Hastings is driving down the road and you could pull up next to him, send over something to the computer, and then you drive off and he drives into a tree.
Well, now I'm scared.
I mean, I think that's what they're trying to go for. Obviously, they're trying to draw buzz. They're trying to generate buzz for their talk. But I do at the same time think, well, okay, even if this isn't really in a practical day, like me, right? I have a 2002 vehicle. I'm not worried about this. But I think it's conceptually, from a technical standpoint, it's a good challenge to intellectually kind of noodle around, because I think what I find fascinating is technology is starting to move in such a huge way into these systems that are really life and death. I mean, we already have it with SCADA systems that control pumps at facilities like sewer treatment plants and whatnot. But now we're going to have cars that have network systems in them. We're going to have health devices that are monitoring blood sugar. Google is working on some contacts that go in your eyes, and they measure the sugar level in your blood by looking at like the fluids in your eyes. So, like, these are starting to become very serious applications that can have actual life ramifications. So I think it's interesting to think about. I'm not too worried about it, so I don't want people to freak out. But I guess maybe my question to you would be, Fade, I'll toss this to you first since you jumped in. Would it be better to just wait and not put some of this stuff in the cars right now? Or is it the right move to just go full hog and implement this technology and sort it out once we have problems?
Well, whether it's right or not, I think of course it's going to be implemented. Every car manufacturer wants to get a leg up on another car manufacturer. The problem that I see is, like you mentioned, that any kind of regulation that doesn't understand how these technical systems interoperate and integrate, and why some of them don't need to and should not be put together, like the braking system and your Bluetooth network, that could definitely cause problems later on, and we might have a big bump where, like you said, the features that can cause life or death situations are implemented in a way that aren't secure, and I hope that doesn't happen, but it might, and it might be a learning experience the industry has to deal with.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm going to stick with older cars. They're cheaper and whatnot, so hopefully... works out.
I'm torn, right? Because I like the idea of having these features. That way, internet content's more available. Bold Ninja, let me ask you this one. I'll toss this to you. So, okay, let's go forward and say we're going to have some of this technology in these cars. All right, maybe some of them will have problems, some of them won't. But how can we make sure we avoid a problem that I think is a scourge on internet users across the world? And that is all of these old, crappy routers that don't get updated that now have massive vulnerabilities in them. How can we avoid that from happening to all these computer systems in our cars? Because obviously consumers are not going to just go out and say, all right, well, it's time to connect my car to my Wi-Fi and then log into my car manufacturer's website and download the firmware and apply it to my car's. That's not going to happen. So Bold Ninja, as we go down this path and we do discover these security vulnerabilities, is there any hope that the industry might have a way for us to actually get the fixes out to the consumers?
I mean, there is a good way to be able to do that. If you look at the recalls that all these different cars have, where you have to bring them into the dealership and they fix it for free, we could do something like that, where essentially just saying, hey, there's a recall, bring your car into the shop and we're going to update the firmware on your computer.
Right. Yeah, you're in for an oil change. We'll do an update too. Yeah. That means too, though, what that's going to do is, like, people who root their car's computer, that's going to get overwritten when they go in for an oil change.
Well, yeah, and yeah. I want to play devil's advocate just for a second. What if, let's say, I'm speeding down the road and the police find a vulnerability to your firmware for your car, and they have the ability to make your car stop and pull over.
How will that not be a thing eventually, just on the basis of public safety? Well, look, we don't want to have to do a 100-mile-per-hour car chase down the road. Let us at least shut their engine down to 20 miles per hour, or let us at least turn off their engine to save lives. And all it would take is one guy going 100 miles per hour when this capability is there to plow into a car with some kids in it, and boom, it's a federal law.
Can I go a little further?
Yeah.
What if we have self-driving cars and the cops see a speeding car? If that car's speeding, that's suspicion they could be a terrorist. Why would you speed if you have a self-driving car?
Okay, now that's...
Well, I'm just saying, when the social norm becomes one thing, and then you can point to anything that used to be the social norm as something that's outside of it. But that would be a long time, right? Self-driving cars aren't even a thing yet.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of time between now and then for things to those kinds of things to be sorted out, because I think for a long time it's gonna be self-driving cars will be one thing, but self-driving cars where there's no driver override, I think we'll be long dead before that happens.
Well, I don't know if it'd take that long. I mean, look at all the safety benefits of self-driving cars. Once that becomes a thing and it becomes affordable, like the amount of people that will argue for the safety benefits of that. I mean, all the time in my life do I hear about how people drive really stupid and it results in all these accidents. And when you can eliminate that, I don't think it'd take too long.
Yeah, I could definitely see it be rolled out, okay, on the federal highways, self-driving only, but because of the rural areas, we don't have the technology and the infrastructure for self-driving. Then you go manual mode, and then eventually those gaps would be filled in, and pretty soon it'd be like a cell phone coverage map, right? Where pretty soon you just have data coverage everywhere, and everywhere is self-drive or is automated driving at that point.
I'm not saying you completely eliminate it, just that it'd be heavily incentivized.
All right, so before we get totally off the security thread, just kind of a bummer for some of our favorite developers out there. Thousands of Mozilla developer email addresses and password hashes have been leaked online. About 76,000 email addresses and about 4,000 passwords hashes were left publicly accessible on a server for about 30 days, beginning in June, according to a blog post from Mozilla. However, there is no indication that the data was necessarily accessed. I mean, it's publicly available, but we don't know if it was actually accessed. The code that Mozilla uses for the developer login site is open sourced, and it's posted on GitHub. Now, Mozilla said, hey, don't worry, dog. We salted that hash. Well, so some folks did some digging on the Ars Technica forums, and they took a look at the GitHub page where Mozilla's developer portal site has got their login code posted. It looks like from their code they didn't actually stretch the hash. They did have it, to make it clear, have a salted hash. So that is good. So not like we're in a bad situation here. However, they didn't key stretch the hash. While the salt keeps things safer, so you can't just throw it in a rainbow table and something online and get a result in a couple of hours, and it makes it harder against GPU brute forcing. The fact that these are straight hashes means they're a little weak, and so if somebody was super motivated, they could probably break it. So really the best advice would be, if you're a Mozilla developer, if you're a registered Mozilla developer, go change your password, right? And if you're not using LastPass, go use LastPass. However, they did have the hash salted. It just wasn't super great. So somebody has to be pretty motivated. It's not going to just work in one of your drive-by password cracking sites. Some good news for people who want to learn a little more about Linux. Introduction to Linux course has launched. This started August 1st. The Linux Foundation, in conjunction with online education edX, is offering a free introduction to Linux course. You can go check it out right now. The first class was announced back in March. Now it's actually been opened up to the public. Usually this class ran for $2,400 US. That's in bones, folks, and now you can go get it for free. You can even go watch an introductory video by Linus Torvalds. So they're calling it a massively online course, a MOOC. It's being taught by Jerry Cooperstein. Cooperstein is a nuclear astrophysicist who's been using Linux since 1994. And he's been teaching since almost that long, too. So it sounds like it's a pretty good course. And according to DICE, it might be worth your time. According to DICE, the leading career site, as they call themselves, for career and technology engineering professionals. Their words, not mine. 9 out of 10 IT hiring managers are looking for Linux pros, they say. So if you're looking for work and you haven't totally locked into Linux yet, this might be a good time. The class looks at Linux from a really high level. You'll be able to use Linux distributions from any of the major Linux families, including Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS, Debian, Ubuntu, and even Mint and SUSE. Look at them including SUSE. The course will cover various tools and techniques commonly used by Linux programmers, system administrators, and users in day-to-day end tasks. So go check that out. We've got more information in the show notes, as well as a link to Linus's video doing the introduction. Yesterday, we brought up that Google scanning your email story, and we got a lot of really good feedback, some good discussion in the subreddit, and I think I'm going to try to summarize it all up in Thursday's episode. I didn't want to bring up it's kind of a downer topic. I didn't want to bring it up 2 days in a row. But I really wanted to say thank you for the great feedback and the good thread, the conversation we're having in the techtalktoday.reddit.com, and probably the email inbox. I would say a good guess. I haven't necessarily got in there yet, but I will. But I want to hold it for Thursday. Angela's joining me for tomorrow's Tech Talk today, and I thought, all right, I don't really want to talk about that with Angela. She said, have a fun episode. I want you to have a fun episode when I'm on. So I'm going to try to liven it up. And here's a little good news. So let's go out on a little good news for today's episode, because yesterday we had a bad story for kids. Today, could a little video games actually be good for kids? What? No. Actually, Yeah, you probably already thought so. I've actually noticed positive results with my kids. Researchers found that kids who played video games for less than 1 hour a day were more likely to be happy, helpful, and emotionally stable than kids who never grabbed a controller, according to findings published online in the August 4th Journal of Pediatrics. More than 3 hours daily of gaming had some opposite effects, though. Video game junkies were more likely, as the journal put it, to be moody, unhappy with their life in general, and more apt to act out in negligent ways, as they put it. To examine both the positive and negative effects of gaming, researchers assessed the video game habits and emotional growth of nearly 5,000 British boys and girls aged 10 to 15. Okay, is anybody in the mumble room, anybody want to take the opposite side of this and not think that maybe a little bit of video gaming is actually good for kids? No. Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah, to me, this seems pretty obvious if you've grown up in a generation that has video games. For me, I think video games have helped give me really good reflexes, because I definitely don't have good reflexes from playing sports, But I think I've got some of the quickest reflexes. I'm like a ninja, you guys. Whoa! Did you even see that? Whoa! That's right. You got to watch out. I got them fast reflexes like a ninja. I didn't get those from sports. I got them from video games. I think it helps you think fast, too. Helps you problem solve. I think that's a really good... It helps you, really, like, from a puzzle standpoint, because a good game always has puzzles. There's concepts you have to kind of figure out. There's mechanics. There is a certain amount of technical baggage that you just drag along whenever you're even playing a video game console. You got to troubleshoot components, things like that. It is good from multiple angles. So I'm not surprised by this.
There's some research that backs that up, too.
Oh, yeah? How so?
I can't remember, but I do come across the old thread and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some stuff, on the Unfiltered show, we've seen a lot. See, I think the reason why maybe I'm like, haha, I told you, sucker, is because in the Unfiltered show, several occasions we've played, a wide range of clips from the mainstream media where they really go after video games and kids, and they really kind of make it sound like it's, the worst thing ever to kids. It's making them into killing machines is essentially what they say. In fact, on MSNBC's The Morning Joe, Mika said that video games are worse for children than smoking cigarettes.
That's a lie.
And and I think in a big way it's because video games are their largest competition. The kids that are playing video games are not watching TV, so I think there is some of that, is some of where it's coming from, and it's an easy scapegoat because it's a different industry that takes profits away from movie sales and DVD box sales and advertiser sales, so, it's easy to go after them, so I think there's that component of it, but it is so often repeated, like on the CBS Morning News, Charlie will be up there and he'll be saying, another study comes out showing that video games lead to aggressive behavior by children. I mean, everybody's seen this. And so here we go. An actual study by the Journal of Pediatrics says, actually, as long as you don't overdo it, turns out if you do things in moderation and you find a balanced approach, it actually is a good thing. Surprise, surprise. Right?
The comments that they use are usually ignorant as well, because there's the most famous person is Jack Thompson, who says that every school shooting has a person, the guy who did the school shooting or whatever is a former gamer, and you're like, well, yeah, but 99% of everyone is a former gamer, or at least a current gamer. So, and
I recognize too, like Dunder saying, my kid it goes overboard, and I know that's a hard thing, especially for kids to learn how to walk that line, because they don't have a lot of experience applying the brakes to an urge like that. And I have kids in my family who are just like so into Minecraft, it's unbelievable. Like they just live in Minecraft. They're young kids. And I feel like as parents, boy, we'll get off this because this isn't a parenting thing, but I feel like as parents, sometimes in the present, we see something and we see all the bad things, why that's bad. But then when you go down the road a couple years later, you're like, oh, well, they're actually a little bit better because when they going through this, they learned about X or whatever. So sometimes, too, when we're looking at the effects of video games on children, we're looking at it right in a very present moment, and it's, down the road, there's sometimes longer-term benefits. Anyways, I'm done. That's all I had to say about it. Well, any closing thoughts, guys, before we run today?
I I think the utter absurdity with this entire situation is that we're discussing the merits of a genre. We're not discussing the merits of a specific type of game.
Right.
Games stretch the full bounds of pretty much everything, and all they amount to essentially is a TV screen with interaction. So instead of just passively watching something, you actually have to interact with it on an intelligent basis, and I don't see how you can condemn the entire genre of media interaction. Like, you need specifics. Like, maybe this type of game isn't exactly great for you, but, like, just saying the entire genre is without merit seems absurd.
Well, rational thought agrees with that, but there for every generation, there's always some kind of thing that they attack for being making kids aggressive, like comic books and TV shows and movies and stuff. It's probably, as soon as people are okay with video games, there's going to be something else. Yeah,
very true. Good points, both of you. And I think that you've nailed it right there. If we're not discussing the type of video game, then the entire conversation itself is essentially invalid, because you're arguing about a theoretical thing, and it's too vague. You know, because somebody might have a first-person shooter in their head, while somebody else has Minecraft, and meanwhile I'm thinking about a speak and spell game on the iPad, right? So it's that's a great point. Okay. All right, well, before we run, I wanted to mention the Patreon page. You can go over there, and it's a great way where you can invest in the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. You can become a stakeholder and keep us going and help us move into future projects. Now, today, after the show, between Linux Unplugged and when this show ends, I'm going to begin to brine the best barbecue chicken ever, which I will unveil on Thursday's show. So make sure you tune in, because I'm going to start the brine. I'll be barbecuing it tomorrow, so that way I can get all the pictures and get all and get everything documented for you guys, so that way I can leave you with some barbecue wisdom. And Angela joined me; she can attest it's delicious chicken, and we'll be eating it before on Filter on Wednesday. So it's big, right? And that's what this is that's the barbecue challenge. It's the beginning of we've decided to take a multi-phased approach. See, Angela will come over tomorrow. We'll talk more about that. And part of it is celebrating you helping us accomplish the next set of goals that we have for the network, because your support over at patreon.com today busted us through that milestone. And as a way to just say thank you and really just kind of have fun with the idea and really say, okay, we're going to take a breather and be humans for a minute and just celebrate. That's what the barbecue challenge is. And it's a way for us just to have fun. And you got us there. And you can help us reach the next milestone. Go over to patreon.com/today. Invest in the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. That is the Tech Talk Today Patreon page, but the contribution, all of the revenue generated there, every penny goes into the network as a whole. Patreon.com/today. And thanks to 290 of our patrons. You guys are awesome. All right, so we were talking about video games and how good they are for us, and how they've really busted down a lot of stereotypes too, of course. Actually, that whole topic would make for an interesting show on itself, is where video games have kind of reinforced stereotypes and where they've helped. That's a fascinating topic. But one thing I like to do is look a little perspective back at some of the classic old video games, ones that I used to see and be like, oh, this is amazing. This is the pinnacle of incredible. Now you look back and it's just kind of quaint, but it is fun. And we'll leave you with a commercial for a video game you're going to have to run out and buy right now, ladies and gentlemen. See you back here tomorrow, jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Have a good day, everybody.
Atari introduces the Woman of the Year, Ms. Pac-Man. With a style of entertainment that Pac-Man never knew, an endless supply of floating goodies, oranges, pretzels, 4 different screens, each with different exits and entrances, and the green screen so difficult to reach, you may never see it again.
Don't you know, I'm more than Pac-Man with a bow.
Reach for Ms. Pac-Man.
Reach for a toy.